Hello my dears, is the dead middle of summer a good time to start a series explaining how to make schoolwork more accessible and less overwhelming? Probably not. I'm pretty sure that the answer is no, but we are doing it anyway, and I hope that that is cool with you. Today we're going to talk about how to write a research paper, or really any paper, I guess, but I've also written like almost exclusively research papers for most of my life at this point, and also with this channel I write on average 1 to 2 a week or more, so I have it down to a bit of a science. Also, for blind and low vision friends or anybody else who needs it, I am a white person in their early 20s with brownish blondish curly hair. I am currently wearing a lavender button-up, and I'm sitting in front of a bookshelf with books on it and photos behind me on the wall. I'm actually genuinely remembering to include audio descriptions almost every time now, except for Mulan. I forgot that one, but I'm really excited about it. So anyway, let us learn how to research and how to organize the research into a really kick-butt paper without having a small handful of panic attacks, because that's always a good goal to have. Our example video today is going to be the last 3 videos that I made. It is a series about the DSM, capitalism, and neurotypicality, because those ended up being just ideas and then they became really stressful to write deep dives for some reason. I also usually only use this method that I'm showing you for my really big projects because I kind of just automatically do it in my head at this point because I've done it so frequently. But since those 3 videos were meant to complement each other and all relate to each other, I had a ton of information. So I was very afraid of overlap and I needed to organize it. So I decided to, instead of format it like it was one really long video, I would split it up, though I'm going to be honest, I wrote this script for this video at the same time that I wrote those 2 videos, so neither you nor I know what's about to happen, so we'll see. Now, since most people don't write research papers in their spare time, let us pretend that this is a school assignment where I have to write about some aspect of the DSM and its relation to capitalistic structures and maybe neurotypicality. That seems probably like something that would come out of like an advanced AP Psych teacher who like knows things, though to be fair, my AP Psych teacher just read us Winnie the Pooh for a frame of reference of what I know about AP Psych. He also taught us a lot, but Winnie the Pooh is my like strongest memory. But anyway, it seems like a legit prompt. Great, we're moving on. We're gonna ignore the existence of page counts and specific source requirements for this because I run my own channel. And who knows how long any given video is going to be, or how many research papers will potentially tie into it. But pro tips for you, if you know that you need to write a certain number of pages, Google however many words is however many pages. One double-spaced page usually holds about 250 words. So once you know your word count, you can divide that by 150 to 200 words. That's the norm for an average paragraph size. And now you know how many paragraphs you're going to need in your paper. Then subtract 2 paragraphs for your intro and conclusion. And then you know how many points you're going to need to make. So there you go. Growing up, it was always like intro, reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, conclusion as an essay setup. That's super valid and precisely how you should organize a paper. But also, the way to bring your paper to the next level is by taking that format and creating a sort of narrative out of it, because the honest facts of the world are that nobody likes reading academic papers, nobody likes writing academic papers, but you can write it in a way that feels like you're unfolding a story, even if your story is mostly facts, and that will keep people interested so they're less miserable reading it. And also yourself, because then it feels like a less arbitrary section of boredom. You just write a flowing paper. And you don't have terribly hollow transition sentences, and the paper writes itself faster. I highly recommend. So with that in mind, we know that we need to write about the DSM and capitalism, and rather than pick a particular topic in that category beforehand and declaring this is what I'm going to research, I am instead just going to start researching. And I know I can feel some teachers having a little teeny tiny stroke at me, telling you to do research before you know what you're researching, but here's the deal. As an autistic person with terrible executive functioning, I'm not going to be genuinely curious about or interested in a topic that is assigned to me, and so the paper's not going to get written. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep in mind the prompt and what it's asking for, and then I'm going to Google things in that direction until I hit a wall that is a new hyperfixation within that category. What do I want to know more about? What kind of story do I want to tell? Is it the story that the research is trying to tell us, or do I want to debunk it? What other things do I want to tie into this story? What kind of moral of the story or sort of political point do I maybe want to make? And 9 times out of 10, whatever I end up coming upon is somehow more about the prompt than anything the teacher would have tried to give me within the prompt. And if it's also like slightly adjacent to the prompt, I will talk to the teacher about it to be like, is it okay if I write about this instead? And usually they say that it's totally fine because they see how interested I am in it and how excited I am about it, because, you know, it's related to the topic and I am voluntarily learning, so it's fine. And also if there are any requirements on like, you must have this many of this type of source and this type of source, I highly recommend doing all of your research, answering all of your questions, putting together your paper, and then if you have missed some of the types of sources you need, like a research paper or something, find some of the facts that you got from a different source from another one and cite that instead. But also, I very, very rarely needed to do that because my rabbit holes tend to dig pretty deep. So anyway, in this case, let us pretend that I looked up the DSM and capitalism and I came upon discussions of the issues with mental diagnostics in relation to who holds power. And I find that very interesting because I'm always intrigued in discussions about how things that we see as super solid and acceptable and foundational are in fact arbitrary categories that exist for reasons of oppression, because that's interesting to me and it makes me feel like I'm uncovering something cool and I'm very like Sherlockian, fighting a system and uncovering underground things, even though that's very much not is what's going on, but we're gonna let me live in my Sherlock Holmes dreams. Great. Okay, so as a recap of what we've done thus far, we took the prompt, we glanced at it, we chucked it out the window, and then we started cold research, hit a special interest right on the head, and now we know what we want to write about, which is the faults of the DSM, but through the lens of capitalism. And inevitably, we have a handful of ideas that we potentially found from those sources that we glanced at to find this hyperfixation. So, the next question is, what do we want to know more about? What kind of narrative do we want to tell? For me, I am curious to know, what are the origins of the DSM? Where did it come from? Why do we need it? What were the intentions behind it? Did one guy write it? Did everybody write it? How did that work? How are disability and capitalism related? Are they directly related or adjacent? Is there a history of mental illnesses that we now see as completely non-existent, specifically being weaponized against minority groups? Also, I heard rumor that they updated the autism criteria in the DSM in March of 2022. What does that look like? Why is that happening? Is it better or worse? Is there any scientific backing behind the existence of mental diagnosis? So now I have a lot of really disjointed questions of things that, regardless of what paper I'm gonna write, I want to know the answers to them. Like, from my world perspective, I want to know. So now I have directions in which to put my research. So if I put each one of those questions into a document, and then I do a whole heck of a lot of Googling, pulling up articles from neuroscience and sociology and anthropology, and see what answers I can potentially find to all of those questions. During this process, don't worry too much about keeping your notes super organized. I typically vaguely categorize things underneath the big question headings that I've asked, but I always do it with the knowledge that it's going to be completely restructured later, so it doesn't really matter, as long as it makes sense to you. Also, if you're not quite sure how to bounce from source to source, that is an acquired skill, but usually when you read one paper, it's going to link to another paper, and you might want to know where at that, or articles link to other articles. When you learn something new, you inevitably have more questions to Google more things, etc., etc. And don't be afraid to read articles from not the most trustworthy or major sources at the start, because like WebMD can give you a really solid colloquial understanding of a thing and then lead you into more in-depth and advanced research behind that thing that you can make your own conclusions. I'm not going to film my entire process of me printing out articles and going through all the Instagram posts that I've screenshotted over the last 2 years and added specifically into specifically labeled and categorized folders in the photos on my phone, and taking notes from other scripts of mine and random readings that I've had throughout college and other various classes of mine. I think that you're able to imagine that. Also, these 3 videos took me about 10 hours, if not more, to research, and I don't think that you want to see that, no matter how much I speed it up. But at the end of all of this research, once you finally feel like every single one of those questions has been answered thoroughly enough, and also all of the questions that you inevitably started to wonder about along the way, you will have a truly chaotic, crazy set of notes and a very big source list. Congratulations! You have just completed the absolute hardest, most complicated part of your paper. It's not smooth sailing from here, but it is. So now you get to do the fun part. It does kill a couple trees, but in my personal opinion, you would probably kill more trees using all the tissues that you need during your panic attack than you would doing this. So it's a net win, in my opinion. But basically, you're going to find your nearest printer and you're going to print out all of your notes one-sided. Do not print them on both sides. That will be a pain in the butt and it negates the purpose of doing this. Then grab like 10-ish extra pieces of blank white paper. You can also just use construction paper, whatever you have around, and scissors and tape and probably a pen. What you're going to do is you're going to cut up sections of your notes either by major point or big question or whatever sections seem logical to you, and then lay them all out on the floor so that you can create a specific narrative order. For example, I know that I usually start my things with a where it all began thing as a solid basis for where I'm going with my discussion. That's not what I ended up doing for the DSM video, actually. I started that way and I ended up moving everything. But yeah, so sometimes I, end up deciding I need to split up a section a little bit smaller to make the outline even clearer, move all things around, and whatever seems like a natural continuation of the story, if there were to be a story of all of these boring nonfiction facts you've come up with, you want to create that story. Once you have your whole outline finalized, tape it all to the pieces of paper and to each other so your dog or the wind or anything else doesn't ruin it, and also makes it portable so you can sit and write in several different places. And also number your pages. Sometimes I just number it like this paragraph, this paragraph, this paragraph in these orders, or I'll just number pages, whatever works for you. And then I'm going to go back to my original document where all of these notes are. I'm going to get really overwhelmed by them existing and then delete all of them. I'm going to keep the sources, but I'm going to delete all of the notes. And then I'm just going to start writing using this physical outline of order to guide me. And the writing is now a lot less scary because the paper is effectively written for you. You have all of your points out. You just need to string all the thoughts together in a cohesive manner. Usually I'll use a touch of the first topic to open the paper and the introduction section, and end the introduction paragraph with a sort of thesis to go into the body paragraphs, which, since you've constructed a narrative, should pretty nicely flow into each other. You don't need to do that really weird transition sentence. And then if my final point gives off the vibe of where can I go from here, I will use that in my conclusion. If it doesn't do that, then I'll just use that for my last body paragraph and write a conclusion that's kind of summarizes what we learned today and what we can do with that information in the future and where I think we should be going with it. It is at this point that you do the editing bit. I'm the kind of person who writes a paper and then promptly turns it in without looking at it ever again. Editing my research papers often makes them worse for some reason, and I don't know why, but I have been told by professional writing friends that you should read them out loud to edit them because then you're going to notice the weird things. For me, with my videos, I read them out loud to you right now. So why not edit them on the spot as I'm speaking to you and save myself some time? But yes, that is basically how I go about writing my bigger deep dive videos and also most of my school papers in an accessible manner. It may not work for you, and that's totally fine, but maybe a couple pieces of this helps you in some manner to be able to navigate the world. And I would love to know what kinds of school or other life things you would like advice on how I do them with my neurodivergent brain, like how I study or other things that I can't think of right now. Because clearly I'm qualified to be doing all of this as my job because I do have real thoughts. Yeah, I will link the videos that we wrote together today in the description if you are interested in them. And as always, thanks for listening, thanks for learning. Remember, it's never too late to start over, and I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.